I like that. Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, let's do it. A few months ago, I resolved to go on a camping trip. The issue with this, of course, is that I don't know how to camp. It is currently March the 2nd. The events that we will cover today occurred February 19th. And by the time spring break starts, March 6th, I must become an expert camper. Attend me on my quest to become the camper. This is the video where it finally happens, guys. The video where I cook over an open campfire. On the menu is green beans and tea. However, I first needed to make a spit, something from which to hang our food while it cooks. I had a few ideas and decided to draw them up on another piece of trash sheet music by Joe Dinenzon. My first idea was, all right, hold on. It's really freaking warm in here, man. That's a bit nicer. Off my neck. My first idea was to make a tripod, and I would hang our materials from the point of center convergence. My second idea was a bit more conceptually adventurous. With only 2 poles and a perfunctory knowledge of physics, I would create a stand, sort of like a hangman, and hang our stuff from the end over the fire. My last idea was to create something akin to a rotisserie spit. I would have a horizontal bar from which we could hang and skewer whatever items we had, and it would even be able to rotate. Each of these methods had their own advantages and disadvantages. The tripod method would likely be the most stable and resource efficient of these ideas. However, it would also be really boring and basic. The hangman technique would be super awesome and a marvel of technology. However, it would likely be very hard to assemble and keep stable. The rotisserie method would come with all the bells and whistles that you would want. You could hang and skewer stuff and even rotate your food. However, it would take a lot of resources and have questionable stability. While I thought about this, I went ahead and began my hunt for building materials in the garage. I found what appeared to be a piece of a bed frame and took it without telling anyone. I figured that I could break it down and use it for materials. In concept, this was a really good idea, but it proved not to go exactly according to plan. Something tells me this ain't gonna work. Whatever dunce put together this bed frame did it way too well. I could not take it apart. Luckily, I had other options. I grabbed some sticks that I leaned against the fence and I got to work. I settled on the tripod method of construction because it seemed more foolproof for this fool. I would need to assemble it by converging 3 sticks with lashings at one end. I went ahead and harvested some more vines for lashings. I stripped the vines, sat down, and began my creation. Y'all are about to see some real Mexican craftsmanship. I'm eager. I had researched ways to tie sticks together and went ahead and employed the best tactic. Get our tuck game going. Like my name was RuPaul. Then it was time to test it out, and bam. Bam, what's hot? Oh, yeah! Was pretty happy with how it turned out. Next, it was time to prepare my campfire. In the past, I've gone with the teepee method, but since this time I was going to be cooking, I opted for something a little different. First, I split some firewood and sorted out the parts that were too wet to burn. Later, I would find out that they were all really too wet to burn. Now, I have to emphasize that here I am doing a hatchet no-no. It is generally a bad idea to split wood directly on the ground. There are several reasons for this, not the least of which concerning the contingency of missing a strike. First, you gotta hunch down to split your wood, which ain't good for your joints. Second, if you miss a strike or your hatchet glances off of the wood, you risk taking a blade to the foot or knee or any other body part. Also, even if you do split it perfectly, chances are that your hatchet is going to go directly into the dirt, which is going to tear up your blade very quickly. Ideally, I would have a splitting block or a stump or something about 14 inches off the ground to eliminate these risks. But, The log cabin method for campfire building is especially good for cooking. You start from the bottom with the larger pieces and work your way up, slowly getting to smaller pieces. The gaps in the wood keep your fire nice and oxygenated. As the fire burns down, you can have a quick fire for frying or sauteing. Once the fire cooks all the way down, you wind up with a really nice bed of coals. I stacked up the fuel, shoved some tinder down the middle of it, and lit it. Now it was time for some food prep. My general idea was to cook the green beans in their can and then use that same can to boil some water for a cup of tea. What I want to do is remove the wrap. It kind of makes it look a little rustic. This part went about according to plan. It was right around this point that the campfire started griping me, producing an excess amount of smoke, but I ain't tripping over it really. Oh. The smoke was like a barrage of homing missiles locked onto my unprotected, naked eyeballs. This was hands down the most annoying part of this entire project. Every time I moved upwind to get away from it, the breeze would immediately shift and start face blasting me again. I found a rope just lying around on the ground. It'll work to string up our food. I strung up the can of Grambums. After some waiting and constant repositioning to keep the smoke from catastrophically impacting my sclera and cornea and iris and other eyeball parts, it seemed that my Grambums were heated up and ready to get down with. I burned my hands more than once because, like a dummy, I forgot to bring anything to hold a piping hot can with. However, I eventually got all the Grobums into a bowl and began a mini mukbang. These green beans have the subtle yet comforting flavor of smoke. I'm pretty chill with that. You likely eat it with a fork, but when you're outside camping, you're not offered many options. Luckily, I found a spoon out here in the wilderness, otherwise I'd have to fashion myself a pair of chopsticks. Camping isn't about being comfortable. I rinsed out my can, filled it with water, and rehung it above the flame to start boiling and heating up so that I can make some tea. While I waited, I ate some more Grambums and drank a matcha latte that I had made myself earlier. All the while dealing with more smoky eye than a 2000s fashionista. I finished my vegetals and poured my tea. I dropped the can into the mug to steep it quicker. Finally, it was time for the taste test, and it tasted like tea. I was pretty cool with that. I'm actually not much of a tea guy. It tastes too much like leaves. But for the sake of this challenge, not bad. With 3 victories under my belt, I decided not to get greedy and I cashed out while I could. I let the fire finish running its course while I did some cleanup. After everything was put up and I buried the fire, it was time to go inside and do my reflection. And by that, I mean immediately take a nap and record the reflection many days later. Upon reflection, I feel pretty good about this challenge. I managed to complete everything I set out to do with very few tangential pursuits along the way. I'm especially proud of my tripod spit. I'm sure you could tell. My largest obstacle was definitely dealing with the smoke. The campfire wrung out my eyeballs like a sponge and made me seriously contemplate wearing swimming goggles for the rest of the project. In the future, I could probably prevent this by using wood that is actually dry, in real life dry, actually dry, real life. I will investigate in the future more options of ocular protection because my eyeballs almost caught black lung. One last observation. I should have showered as soon as I came inside and not taken a nap. Everything I own now smells like smoke, including my phone case and hair. I've washed my hair more than once since this activity, and I can still smell it on me. I'm sorry to my friends if I smell like the family cookout. It's not a terrible smell, but it is there and almost annoying. Barbecue. The whole phone case stench thing kind of concerns me because I don't know if smoke comes out of phone cases. And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to get a new phone case. And I don't feel like doing that. We'll have more updates about that later. Yeah, it still smells like smoke. All in all, it's pretty neat. Thank you for joining me once again on one of my camping adventures. I can quickly feel myself blooming into the camper I was born to be. I'm not exactly sure what my next step is. I'm open to suggestions. I hope to see you next time on my quest to become the camper. In the meantime, I will go ahead and practice my viola because it's the only thing I have around right now.